Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Ghoti Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for post Darkwing Blast. With the release of Darkwing Blast, we got some more of the TCG exclusive Fish Synchro deck, which focuses on banishing a bunch of the different Ghoti fish monsters to gain additional monster effects and get out some of the boss monster terrifying looking synchro monsters in the deck as well. With each one, I was very creeped out by the ones we got from the Power of the Elements set, and they didn't disappoint with the new Ghoti monsters we got from Darkwing Blast. They are utterly terrifying with how they look, but still a really awesome deck if you're a fan of the fish type in Yu-Gi-Oh! And also just the synchro playstyle that these cards do while being able to banish a good number of cards on the field and that graveyard setup. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off for the main deck. For the Ghoti main deck monsters, we're still running the 3 Shift Fairy of the Ghoti. You can banish this card from your graveyard to target one fish monster you control. It gains 500 attack till the end of this turn. And during the standby phase for the rest of the turn after this card was banished, you can special summon one of the banished cards. And during your opponent's main phase, if this card was special summoned this turn, you can, quick effect, immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon one fish synchro monster using this card you control. You can only use each of the following of Shift Fairy of the Ghoti once per turn. So it's banished setup like a lot of the different cards that we run in this deck, and just having new additional synchro monsters in the extra deck to go for the playstyles, having a level 8 and a level 6 monster along with the bigger boss monsters that we already have in the deck makes for an added addition for this tuner. I also run 3 copies of Pace's Light of the Ghoti. You can banish this card you control to special summon one fish monster from your hand, except for Pace's Light of the Ghoti. And during the standby phase of the next turn after this card is banished, you can special summon this banished card. And during your opponent's main phase, if it was special summon, you can quick effect immediately after this effect resolves to synchro summon one fish synchro monster. So pretty much another one of these setup, just like your Fairy of the Ghoti, just being more for the banish from the graveyard with Shift, and Pace's being from the card you control on the field. For the new Ghoti monsters, I also run 3 copies of Snopio's Shade of the Ghoti. During the main phase, quick effect, you can banish 2 fish monsters from your hand and or graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is special summoned, you can target one face-up card in the field, banish it when it leaves the field. And if this card is banished, you can banish one fish monster from your graveyard, add this card to your hand. You can only use each effect of Snopio's Shade of the Ghoti once per turn. This is one of the new monsters we got. Being a level 6 monster can work pretty well with the tuners that we already run in the deck, being able to go for the level 8 synchro option, but also being able to recycle it back to your hand while also set up some of our other banish plays really works well, and then it even just takes away from some of your opponent's plays, being able to banish a card the next time it would leave the field. Ideally, I do want to run 3 of the new tuner we got, which is Zep Ruby of the Ghoti. I just have 2 Beautiful Princess as a spot holder. If you don't have Ruby of the Ghoti, it's great just for more fish setup on the field, being able to special summon from the deck. And you can banish this card from your hand, then target one fish monster in your graveyard, banish it, and during your opponent's next turn, if this card was banished, you can special summon it. And if special summon, except during the damage step immediately afterwards, you can synchro summon one fish synchro monster using it. So it's more setup, being able to banish from the hand and target a fish monster to also banish just sets up all the other banish plays we mentioned before with the other Ghoti monsters to be then special summoned back onto the field. And I'm also running 3 of the new Xeep Omen of the Ghoti. If a fish monster is banished, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. During the standby phase of the next turn after this card is banished, you can target one of your Ghoti traps that is banished or in your graveyard and set that target. Being able to reset some of the Ghoti traps which we run, which we do have a good variety of different ones in the deck, including older ones from Power of the Elements and new ones from the set. Just good for the setup, but also for the fact that this is a level 4 fish monster, so we can use it to then go into some of the lower level synchro plays like the new Arion Post Serpent of the Ghoti, or even just being able to have it and be used for one of our other fish synchro monsters that we run in the extra deck. And for some of the lower numbers for the Ghoti monsters, I'm running 2 Enoch, Sentry of the Ghoti, a level 6 monster, so being useful for the bigger plays once again for level 8 along with our tuners. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target one of your banished level 4 lower fish monsters, special summon it in defense position but negates effects, and you can banish one fish monster from your hand or face on the field to add one Ghoti trap from your deck to your hand. So this is more of the play setup, being able to have this card be normal summon and then just quickly get out one of your Ghoti tuners back onto the field after it was banished. And for more of the generic fish support, I run 2 lifeless leaf fish. When this card is summoned, you can send 1 fish monster from your deck to the graveyard, except for lifeless leaf fish. And you can banish this card from your graveyard to target 3 fish monsters in your graveyard, shuffle those monsters into the deck, and then draw 1 card. So it's recycle power for some of the other fish monsters we run in this deck if you can set them up in your graveyard beforehand. And just being able to send another fish monster from your deck to the graveyard can set up some of those banishes, especially with Shift, Fairy of the Ghoti, then being able to banish after being set up right in the graveyard to begin with. And lastly, I also just run 2 White Stingray, more graveyard setup while just being a special summon of another level 4 monster by discarding a water monster. So once again, a great setup for your Fairy of the Ghoti in the graveyard to then special summon this card out and then have a banish play, being able to banish it and then also target a fish monster you control, boosting its attack, but still being able to set up the banish to special summon it back onto the field. And that's it for the main deck monsters. Moving on now to the spells. The only spell for the Ghotis, and it doesn't even have Ghoti in the name, is the Most Distant, Deepest Depths. When you control a fish monster, this card cannot be destroyed or banished by card effects. It has to be a fish synchro monster. You can only use each of the following effects of the Most Distant, Deepest Depths once per turn. You can banish 1 fish monster from your hand or graveyard to add 1 Ghoti monster from your deck to your hand. If a fish monster is normal or special summon to your field while this card's in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can target a fish monster you control, banish it, and if you do, add this card to your hand. So it's recycle power. We do have 3 in the deck just because it's a great addition to have, and being able to rely on an easy search for cards like Snowpio, Shade of the Ghoti, to then have an easy setup on the field definitely makes this a great field spell addition to have to use. For more of the banish option, I also run 3 Moray of Avarice. You banish 1 face-up fish, sea serpent, or aqua monster you control to draw 2 cards. So not only can this card set up the banish for, once again, some of the other tuners that we run, but also giving you draw power to go into some of the more important cards to rely on setting up more fish monsters in the graveyard for us to use. For some of the one-ofs for these spells, I run 1 Gold Sarcophagus, pretty self-explanatory. It's just an easy banish for our Ghotis, Dimensional Fisher, to not only lock down your opponent out of some of their monster plays, but set up more for our banish themselves. 1 Call by the Grave, and also 1 Terraforming for the Search of the Field spell, and Call by the Grave is pretty self-explanatory to begin with. Moving on now to the traps, there is a wide variety of Ghoti traps that we run in the deck, running 2 Ghoti Cosmos. Not only can this card be recycled back onto the field thanks to some of our setup with the new Ixip, Omen of the Ghoti, but with this card you apply these effects in sequence based on the number of banished fish monsters. If it's 1, your fish monsters cannot be destroyed by battle this turn, and if it is 4 or more, the activation of effects of fish monsters activated on the field cannot be negated. If it's 8 or more, special summon 1 fish synchro monster from your extra deck, and it's treated as a synchro summon. So just being able to get around the actual synchro play with this card and rely on the banish makes it a 2-of because you do want to get it more late game since you want to go for that 8 or more in the banished zone. But then you also have the recycle power with Ixip to put this card back onto the field if you do use it for the earlier play of protecting your fish monsters on the field. I also still run the 2 Ghoti Chain for the banish of 1 face of fish monster you control to special summon 1 of your Ghoti monsters that is banished or in your hand, deck, or graveyard with a different original name from the monster banished. So it's an easier way to get out some of the bigger Ghoti monsters on the field while still making use of them if they were special summoned on the field. And then also with this play, it basically sets those monsters up and monsters banished to activate this card effect, but banish it when it leaves the field. But then you can also set up other banish effects depending on which Ghoti monster you special summoned out. And I also run 1 Ghoti Fury for more of the options to target 1 fish monster you control and 1 monster your opponent controls. Banish both targets until the next standby phase. And if a fish monster is special summoned on your field while this card is banished, you can banish this face-up card from your graveyard. And then your face-up spell trap card zone, all fish monsters you currently control gain 1 higher attack for each currently banished card. So it's more of a power-up card, only running the 1 though, because it can be recycled, once again, thanks to Ixip, and searched out and used. I would say the other 2 are just easier setups to rely on, with this one being more of a protection card and an answer to some of your opponent's cards. I also run 3 Paleozoic Dinomischus. Not only is it a level 2 monster to then summon out onto the field to make use of, but it can set up more fish monsters in your graveyard while also being able to take away a card of your opponent's by banishing it. And then lastly for the traps, just 1 Metaverse. So you have the Field Spell Search along with the Terraforming to search the most distant, deepest depths, and then either add it to your hand or activate it, setting up that card to use for your other ones on the field. And that's it for the main deck. Moving on now to the extra deck. I have one copy of Ghoti, Spear of the Ghoti. I would increase the number of this. I'll show what you can take out for additional copies of this card. At the start of damage step, if the card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that opponent's monster. During your opponent's standby phase, you can banish this card. Then if the monster is used as material for this card, synchro summon are all in your graveyard. You can special summon all of them, but banish them when they leave the field. You can only use each Ghoti, Spear of the Ghoti effect once per turn. So not only do you have the reset banish lineup for this card on the field, but just being able to take away a lot of your opponent's own resources by just attacking into them makes it a good level 8 synchro to go into. And then, like I said, just being able to get your resources back onto the field to go into another synchro and then just banish them again to set them up to go into even some of your bigger monsters makes it the good setup to summon them out and then special summon back onto the field and use them to go into cards like Ghoti of the Deep Beyond. I also have one copy of Yugioh, Servant of the Ghoti, the level 6 monster. If this card synchro summon, you can banish one level 6 or lower fish monster from your deck. If it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can target one fish monster in your graveyard, banish that target. Then you can add one fish monster with equal or lower level from your deck to your hand. Search power and setup, depending if you go for the search of cards like Pace's Live the Ghoti, you can then get more monsters on the field to basically synchro up using your Yugioh and one of your other monsters on the field to go into one of your bigger monsters, including Ghoti of the Deep Beyond. Running 2 of this card, the original attack of this card becomes 500 times the number of banished monsters, so the more you banish in the deck, the stronger it becomes. And if this card is synchro summoned during your opponent's turn, you can banish all cards on the field, and during the standby phase of the next turn after this card is banished from the monster zone, you can special summon, getting rid of a lot of cards on the field, but still being able to set up the banish like you were meant to do using this card. And I also run 2 copies of Askan, the Bicorned Ghoti. If it's synchro summoned, you can target one fish monster you control and one card your opponent controls, banish them, setting up the synchro once again for the banished fish monster to then go into one of your bigger monsters. And then also you can banish one fish monster from your graveyard to special summon this card with this card if it was banished. So being able to just get it back onto the field again to reuse. For some of the generic synchros, the 1 white aura dolphin for the special summon power when it's destroyed by an opponent's card, battle, or card effect. 1 ravenous croco dragon, along with 1 Borreload savage dragon, and 1 Baron de Fleur. If you don't have Baron de Fleur or Borreload savage dragon, you can increase the numbers of the Yugioh and the Ghoti that you run in the deck for 2 additional copies of each, with the taking out of Borreload savage dragon and Baron de Fleur. So adding 1 additional copy of Ghoti and then 1 Yugioh by taking out these 2 cards. For the Link monsters, I run 1 Abyss Keeper, along with 1 Miss Starboy and 1 Area, the Water Charmer, just for some more generic water support in the deck. And for the Xyz monsters, I run 1 Stealth Kraken and 1 Silent Honor Arc. If you wanted to keep the other synchros, Silent Honor Arc could potentially be another card you take out to add an additional copy of either one of these 2 synchros. As for some of the Ghoti plays in the deck, with the new setup we have with some of the main deck Ghoti monsters, you can rely on your Zep, Ruby of the Ghoti, and Snopios. For this card being, once again, during the main phase, quick effect, banish 2 fish monsters from your hand and your graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. So with this, you either have the play to set up the banished and summoning out your Shade of the Ghoti onto the field. If it's special summon, you can target 1 face-up card in the field, banish it when it leaves the field, so that can take away one of your opponent's resources. And if you were to banish any of your tuner monsters, thanks to this play, you also have the play to target a fish monster from your graveyard and banish it for more setup with Zep of the Ruby, but also just special summoning options with both of these cards on the field, and then immediately afterwards synchro summon using them. So depending on what you banish, you can special summon back onto the field, and then use with Snopios to go for a level 8 synchro summon using that monster, which then you can use for cards like Ghoti being one of the newer cards, or even if you go for the setup with your Zep Ruby of the Ghoti to banish this card from your hand to target a fish monster in your graveyard and banish it. It can be used with cards like White Stingray, which you can use White Stingray to discard another card in your hand to special summon it out on the field, and then use Zep to discard to banish that additional Ghoti monster, having that level 4 synchro play set up ready on the field to then special summon out the following turn, and then go for the level 6 synchro summon of your new Ghoti for more additional setup. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. Like I said, I don't know if we'll be getting any more Ghoti support. It really feels like they like to give support for 2 sets for the TCG exclusive decks and then just give, random support every so often. And it may feel like that maybe with Ghotis. We'll see in the upcoming set, Photon Hypernova, if they decide to give us more support for the deck. But as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.